So, rather unexpectedly, I had to replace the starter in my Honda. Well, actually, I haven't replaced it yet. I need to go grab one and throw it in. But I had it sitting here on the bench because I pulled it off to test it on the bench just to make sure that it was bad, not doing what it's supposed to. And then I thought to myself, you know who'd really like to see the inside of this starter and how it works? You guys. So, here we go. We're going to start where the connections start. This is the starter solenoid. And this used to be mounted separate from the starter on some older vehicles. So on like some old Ford trucks, you see the starter solenoid on the firewall, or sorry, on the fender. So this is the starter solenoid. Inside here, now I can't really tear this down because they're crimped together and it couldn't put it back together for demonstration purposes. But inside of here is a coil. That's what a solenoid is. It's a coil that, apply power and ground. It creates a magnetic field and it moves something. In this case, this is the main power feed here that comes in, the big one, and it's got some play in it. The big one that comes in from the starter. This is your start control, right? When you turn the key, this is the wire that is controlled and gets the power. When this wire gets power, it runs in here, energizes that coil that's inside of there, and it goes to ground. Now this is grounded through the case because this bolts or screws to the case of the starter, which is directly bolted to the engine block. So the power comes in here and it energizes the coil, and that pulls this in. So when you hit that key, it pulls this in, and what it also does when it pulls that in is there's a contact that connects this post to this post. So all this does, when you energize this, when you get power here, and it's got its ground through the case, is it pulls this in, connects this post to that post. The starter solenoid's job is done. It'll hold that position, but this little notch on here hooks on to this little lever right there, okay? That lever, you can maybe see, moves this in here. So what I will do is I will hold it, and you can see when that pulls down, it pushes that forward. That's simple. So what does that work on? That goes right here, and it rides on the center of this. And you see that pushes down, that pushes that out. So when this is all together, there we go, and this is held in place, and you've got your little arm on there. That's what that solenoid does. That solenoid pulling back pushes the Bendix out, okay? So that's what that does, and this piece of it holds that and closes the back side of this. This is the Bendix and the gear and the bearing that's attached to it. This, whether that's pushed out or not, it engages. It's engaged. When this outside turns, the whole thing turns. So that sits down inside there. Now, let's go to the actual motor here. When this post gets power, or the 12 volts, it's run through there, it comes down through here. Now, these are broken. Brushes. I don't know what I was saying. I was blank there for a second. These actually broke free, but they ride inside of there. If I could have made them go in there. They've got their own little recesses. This wire comes off, it splits, and you can see right there is where one connected, and right there is where the other one connected. Those, I'm throwing everything around. Those are the pieces of it right there. Just like these are still attached for the other end, those should be sitting inside there. Now, these attach to ground right here, all right? These go to ground. These have 12 volts supplied to them from the battery. And what they're riding on is horribly damaged right here. But This sits just inside there, okay? And when this is one of the springs that just fell out from in there. So what happens is when 12 volts is applied here, see directly across from it is ground. 12 volts is applied here, directly across from it is ground. So you have one of the contact points on here gets your 12 volts, you know, on the armature here, and the other side has ground. Now the segments that are directly across from each other are connected through a wire that goes in here and to the other side. So when you come in here and you apply 12 volts through the wire to the other side to ground, this is energized and it creates a magnetic field. And inside of here are the permanent magnets. And you can see, if we go to put this in, it wants to stay right there. So you can see that's the permanent magnets working on it. So whenever this gets power, it's sending 12 volts through here, through the wires in here, through the windings, out the other side to ground, which those magnetic fields interact with these magnetic fields and they switch segments as this starts to rotate, and that is the basic principles of the electric motor. You have magnetic fields that oppose each other that keep driving this forward. This, when everything is bolted together, goes right here. Right? So now you got your solenoid, everything in there. Pulling back on this, it kicks the Bendix out at the same time that this gets energized and starts spinning the starter. So this solenoid energizes at the same time, pulls that lever, which pushes this out, and I'm pulling the whole starter apart, which pushes this out and then turns the starter, or the motor, which starts to turn that. And it won't work if we put it together because the starter's bad. But we can, just for poop and laughter, put it together. Maybe we can. Maybe I'm incompetent. This is the fun part. Trying to get that in there. Okay. So this has 3 screws that go through here. And yeah, I know the tiny little Phillips screwdriver is a little overkill with that Milwaukee. And I'm not assembling this to use. I'm assembling it to get my core charge, to get the core, or use it as a core. These two halves bolt together. I'm going to use the same thing for it. No, they're not tight. They're just run down to hold it. And then this will actually put together itself, because this piece, which came free of there, slides in there in this little awesome segment right here. Slides in, and these are fun to try to put together when you've got these brushes there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those brushes out. The negative ones here we'll probably be able to manage because this isn't functioning anyway. But there we go. Trying not to get my fingers pinched. So that is how that would work. And then typically when this got 12 volts, it would engage the starter motor, the electric motor portion of it. Let's put this where it goes, over there. And then you take your two long bolts. Set it right there. This would go on here. Which one? Oh, it probably got the corroded one, didn't it? And then it's going to get its 12 millimeter. Let's take the 8 millimeter off, Kyle. And there you go. Minus the broken brushes we left out and the springs to go along with them. That's your starter. Now you know how they work.